Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about electrochemical sensors and their application. You already know me. I'm AKM Sarorinam, the postdoctoral researcher in the electrical engineering department. So today, I'm going to deliver this lecture. That is the lecture 8, electrochemical sensors and their application. So these are the learning outcomes, types of electrical sensors we will try to learn today. And also we will learn the working principle of all the electrochemical sensors and the application of all the electrochemical sensors. So let's start. So I think in the previous lecture, Professor Tabassum already told you what are the different kind of sensors or electrochemical sensors. I will show you the details with the application of these electrochemical sensors and their types. So the electrochemical sensor, we can call them electrochemical sensors when they detect the chemical substances by measuring the changes in current, voltage, conductivity, or impedance at an electrode surface mainly. So you can see that I'm calling it electrochemical sensor, not biosensor. Actually, you can also call it electrochemical biosensor, but when we are talking about the biosensors, then the biosensors are a specialized electrochemical sensor that has to use the biological recognition element, such as antibody, enzyme, DNA, RNA, or cell, etc., to detect the biological molecule. When this electrochemical sensor will detect those will use those biological recognition element, then we will call them electrochemical biosensor. But as a generalize, we call it electrochemical sensors. So let's talk about the different types. So there are total 5 types of electrochemical sensor: the potentiometric sensors, amperometric, voltammetric, conductometric, and imperimetric. So from the words, you can easily understand what is what. So potentiometric sensor, that means it measures the potential difference, that is the voltage actually, between a reference and a working electrode without drawing significant current. So the example can be a pH sensor, ion selective electrodes for detecting sodium, potassium, in different ions. And what about amperometric sensor? That measures the current generated by an electrochemical reaction at a fixed voltage. The common example is the glucose sensor in diabetes monitoring, oxygen sensor, or lactate sensors. And there is also voltammetric sensor. So by name you can understand it measures the current as a function of applied voltage. And this is the most commonly used one. So it is useful for detecting multiple analyte in a sample, like heavy metal detection in water or neurotransmitter analysis. There is also conductometric sensor. That means it measures changes in electrical conductivity. So it measures mostly resistance of a solution due to chemical reaction. Example can be the gas sensor for ammonia or carbon dioxide, or water quality monitoring also. And the last one is the impedimetric sensor. So it measures the electrochemical impedance. That means it measures the resistance and capacitance jointly to detect the biological or chemical interaction. The common example are biosensor for pathogen detection, DNA hybridization sensor, etc. So let's start with the potentiometric sensor. So potentiometric sensor, as I told you, it measures an electrochemical cell's electrical potential, that is the voltage, without drawing a specific current. That means the measured voltage is related to the concentration of a specific ion in a solution following the Nernst equation. I think that Professor Tabasum already showed you the Nernst equation. You already know about it. So what is the working principle of the potentiometric sensor? This sensor actually measures the either voltage difference or EMF, that is the electromotive force, between a electrode, between the two electrode. That is, there is the working electrode and the reference electrode. So mainly working electrode, we call it ion selective electrode. That is the main electrode we can work with, and the voltage is related to the concentration of a specific ion by the Nernst equation, as I told you. So here the no external current is applied, unlike amperometric sensor. Only the voltage will measure. So the voltage change is due to the selective ion interaction with the electrode membrane. Okay, and what are the types of different potentiometric sensor? It can be ISE, that is the ion selective electrodes. That means it detects specific ions in a solution. It uses membranes that allow only a particular ion to pass through. And another type is the gas sensor. So it can detect gases that dissolve in a solution or forming ions. And it can be also a biosensor, that means enzyme-based potentiometry. Use enzyme-coated electrode to detect biochemical reaction. Biosensor means not only enzyme. So in the potentiometry, it's not only enzyme-based potentiometry. It can be antibody, DNA, aptamer. Yeah, these are the things. Also, we can do with this potentiometry. So if you look at the applications of potentiometric sensors, so there are vast application in the medical diagnostic, in the environmental monitoring, and also in the industrial processes. So in the medical industry, mostly sugar monitoring, blood pH measurement. So you see the pH sensitive glass electrode are used in case of this blood gas analyzer. And electrolyte monitoring, that means it detects sodium, potassium, chloride, and calcium in blood and urine samples. In the drug testing, it can measure ion concentration in pharmaceutical formulations, and saliva and sweat analysis. That means it can also detect electrolyte imbalance. That's how you know what is the problem in your body, by measuring the sweat or the saliva with the help of a potentiometric sensor. So we also see that this potentiometric sensor can be used in the environmental monitoring. That means the water quality monitoring. In the water, there are different components, right? There are nitrate, fluoride, pH. So we can measure even BOD, biological oxygen demand, chemical oxygen demand. We also can measure those things in the water. That means in the lakes, rivers, and wastewater. In the soil analysis, we can measure the different component in the different nutrient that is available in the soil, and also the pH. Also the heavy metal detection, that we can measure both in water and in soil. So that means the heavy metals like lead, mercury, cadmium, we can easily detect with this sensor. And also air pollution monitoring. So some sensor detect ammonia or hydrogen sulfide in industrial emission. So the industrial processes, that means in the food and beverage industry, agriculture industry, pharmaceutical industry, we can use this sensor. So then the process control in chemical industry, like it can ensure proper pH and other ion levels in chemical production. In the battery industry, so used in battery manufacturing to monitor ion concentration. The textile and leather industry controls dyeing, different kind of dye and tanning process are used there, and we can measure the pH or other ions. Yeah, so you can see here there are vast application, and now we will talk about a research article which will show us how to prepare this sensor and how we will use this potentiometry thing in a using this sensor to detect a different kind of thing. Here in this paper we are detecting pH. So the title of the paper is the potentiometric performance of flexible pH sensor based on polyaniline nanofiber arrays. So from this heading, you can understand we are going to measure the pH based on polyaniline nanofiber array. So at first, what is happening here, you can see the schematic illustration of fabrication of pH sensor based on a screen printing processing. So this is the screen printing processing, and the second B is the schematic of device structure. And you can see here some SEM scanning electron microscope images and also the sensor. So what we're doing here, I'm telling you one by one. So at first, this figure shows the experimental procedure of pH sensor on a screen printing process using carbon and silver chloride paste. The pH sensor has a two electrode configuration with a, you can see here the dimension. It is like the length is 14 plus 3.5 millimeters, so almost 17.5 millimeter. And the width is 4.5 millimeter only. So it's a very small sensor, right? The sensing electrode has a circular shape, right? And the semicircle shape is for a reference electrode. So this one is the working electrode and that is the reference electrode. And as a conductive circuit, the silver chloride paste was printed on a polyethylene terephthalate, that we call it PD substrate, PD. The pre-patterned stainless steel mask, there is a mask you can see here that transferred the silver chloride paste onto the substrate. The silver chloride was strongly attached onto the surface of the PET. As a working electrode, carbon paste at first, you see here, the carbon paste was printed onto silver chloride electrode using a screen printing process. And when observing interface between carbon and a silver chloride electrode using a SEM measurement, there is no cracks or holes. And it indicates that there is a strong addition of carbon and silver chloride. So here you can see there is PD substrate on top of PD substrate. There is carbon paste. It's the working electrode. And also you can see the PET substrate. There is the silver chloride paste, and also there is the carbon paste in the working electrode. Yeah. So and secondly, in the next figure, you can see the polymerization of aniline is happening on top of the carbon electrode, that is the working electrode. So there is the aniline solution and we can polymerize it. So there will be a layer of polyaniline. We call it PANI layer on top of the working electrode. You can do it in different way. Normally we do it using electrodeposition process. So to complete the sensing electrode, polyaniline nanofibers array were deposited onto the surface of this carbon electrode by a, here they use the dilute chemical polymerization method. The Pani-based electrode are highly sensitive for the hydronium ions, and that's how it measures the pH. And the redox equilibrium between hydronium and Pani phase transition is suitable for this potentiometric pH sensor. So here you can see the measurement of EMF, right? EMF between Pani sensing and a silver chloride reference electrodes. This provides electrochemical characteristics of pH sensor. So the EMF signal here of the pH sensor are obtained by varying pH, different pH level from starting from 3.9 to 10.1. And also in the inside, you can see the EMF versus pH level, resulting in a standard calibration line for pH sensor. And the sensitivity of the potentiometric pH sensor can be obtained by the slope of the linear regression according to the Nernst equation. Also here you can see the screen printed based fabrication method of pH sensor provide a good reproducibility. So there are total of 5 sensors showing the same kind of graph in the EMF versus pH. So there is good reproducibility for this pH sensor. I have attached all the DOI information of all the papers in the slide so you can easily get the paper. And let's go to the next one. So this is the example of another potentiometric sensors, and it's a printed temperature sensor based on P.PS's graphene oxide composite. So from the name you understand that it's a temperature sensor. We can measure the temperature. What we are using? P.PSS graphene oxide, two different things. So normally we can find this chemical P dot and PSS separately, or also we can find this in different from Sigma Aldrich or other companies. So we can buy this P dot PSS solution. And also the graphene oxide we can find in a powder form mostly. So we have to make it a solution, and then we will mix the graphene oxide solution with P dot PSS solution and prepare the composite. So in the first figure, you can see is the fabrication method, right? The fabrication of printed graphene oxide P.PSS based temperature sensor. So what is happening here from the very first? The commercially available PI substrate, we are calling it PI or polyamide. The commercial name is Kapton. So the Kapton substrate that has the normally thickness has 1660 micron. So the silver ink here, the silver conductive ink was printed on top of the PI substrate with the help of a shadow mask. And after printing, we have to dry this, excuse me, at 80 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. And then the graphene oxide, you can see this graphene oxide P.PSS. That is normally we can, the graphene oxide powder, I told you we can buy it, or in this paper they synthesize this using the hammer method. And the graphene oxide and P.PSS ratio 1:1. They prepared this solution and stirring for like 1000 RPM for 30 minutes, and then the drop cast this graphene oxide and P.PSS mixture. And then of course you have to dry it. So, and then the sensor is actually prepared. And so here in the next graph you see the normalized resistance, the R divided by R naught. We are calling it normalized resistance, where R is the sensor resistance, R naught is the base resistance at room temperature. So the normalized resistance of the printed graphene oxide P.PSS base temperature sensor over time is shown in this figure. So initially what is happening, the sensor was placed over a hot plate, maintaining a room temperature, and then we increase the temperature, get the minimal variation of 2% with respect to the response of the sensor can be observed. So at first you can see after normal at room temperature, it is showing one normalized resistance, and after 15 seconds, it has started to decrease. So when we are increasing the temperature, the resistance is decreasing. So and and it came to an end, right? This variation may be attributed to the minute self-adjustment. Okay, so you can see here. So when we increase the temperature to 100 degrees Celsius, It goes almost zero resistance, right? That means it's very conductive now. So, and when you stop increasing the temperature, it goes back to cooling. uh, Cooling section. That means it goes back to the previous resistance, but it also takes some time. So why it is taking some time? It is normal, this thing. So this is called the self-adjustment procedure of polymer graphene oxide composite in the polymer matrix, due to the thermal coefficient and local change in the effective relative humidity. And the next figure here, you can see it based on the changes of electrical resistance of the sensor with temperature, right? So that is the calibration equation. It can be clearly seen from this figure that the printed graphene and period PSS based temperature sensor demonstrates around 80% changes in the resistance for a temperature changes of 75 degrees Celsius from started from 25 to 100 degree. Yeah, that is the 75 degrees Celsius. So the sensitivity is very high, 1.09% per degree Celsius. So the calculated changes in this resistance of a temperature was found to be linear with a determination coefficient. There is the RS square is also is not written here, but in the paper I found it is 0.98, which is very high. That demonstrates the linearity of the sensor towards changing the temperature. And yeah, so you can find this paper here. And another, the last one of the potentiometric sensor. This work was done by one of our master's student. So yeah, Aquafins. What is he doing? Advanced quantitative underwater analysis by a flexible integrated nitrate sensor. So we are measuring nitrate, but not only nitrate. This work presents a sensor, integrated sensor array, right? Integrated sensor array. That means it measures nitrate, pH, and temperature. Total three things, but it measures the nitrate thing using the potentiometric sensor. So what is happening here? You can see the nitrate, pH, and temperature sensor are fabricated on top of a PET substrate. And the thickness of the PET substrate was 125 micron. And the sensor array was housed within a waterproof 3D plastic box printed with polylactic acid, and the active area of the sensor were exposed to incoming water through the holes. You can see there are some holes. So the active area is here. So the holes, so the water can go inside the sensor, but not here. Here is the connection part. Only it can come to the sensor surface. While the electrode, so the electrode trace and connection were securely enclosed, as I said. So another box there is, yeah, so this box is this one. There is another box which will contain the 3D printed box, which will contain the readout circuitry and the data communication module. So the system flow diagram you can see here, it illustrates the data acquisition, analysis, and communication process through Wi-Fi between the circuit and the server to enable multiplexed sensing, right? And here you see the data acquisition and wireless telemetry system comprise of an analog front end and a microcontroller unit and the data communication circuitry. Total three things are there. And in this figure, you can see the fabrication of the real sensor, real flexible sensor array. So here you can see the working electrode is the right one, and the middle one is the reference electrode. Working electrode for pH. Okay, so the working electrode of pH is the right one. The left one is the working electrode of nitrate. And the top there is, that is the temperature sensor, the semicircular part. So here the pH sensor is also working as a potentiometric sensor because it is using two sensors, right? The working electrode and the reference electrode. The same reference electrode is used by the nitrate sensor. So the nitrate sensor is also potentiometric sensor. It is using the left one as a working electrode, the middle one as a reference electrode. For temperature, we are just measuring resistance. So the same connection is going over here with the silver connection, and then on top there is the temperature sensor. It is coming back through in this way. Yeah, so what we can see here on the potentiometric nitrate sensor, this consists of a PuRe MOS2 nanocomposite, and on top of that nanocomposite there is ISM layer on top of the working electrode. So this PuRe MOS2 functions as the solid contact ion to electron transducing layer, and the ISM layer provides selectivity to nitrate ion only. And also in the reference electrode, there is a layer of polyvinyl coated reference electrode. We are calling it reference electrode membrane. It helps for the leaching, to stop the leaching of chloride ion. That is normally, you can see in this, it coming from silver chloride electrode, the chloride ion. So we have to stop the leaching because the sensor will be in water for 24 hours. And so here in the open circuit potential of three sensor, we can see here, right? F1, F2, and F3 in ionized water with different nitrate concentration ranging from 1 milligram per liter to 1000 milligram per liter. And it demonstrates the similar behavior, right, for during this 90 minute of continuous operation. So all these three sensors are showing the similar kind of behavior. So when we are increasing the concentration, it decreasing in the negative, increasing in the negative potential. So the strong electroactivity and redox property of the POTMS2 layer here are believed to enhance the sensitivity for the nitrate detection, and the high hydrophobicity of the layer minimize this water accumulation between the ISM and the silver current collector. So it works also as a the POTMS2 layer that works also as a hydrophobic layer. And so here you can see in the calibration curve the sensitivity is really good. R squared is 0.997 in this calibration curve here, and we're getting the data here that are monitored in real time in the mobile through a mobile application. We're getting the nitrate concentration, pH, and temperature. We're getting direct data in the mobile. Yeah, so that's a really nice work.